So welcome to my YouTube channel. That's what we call The Good Life. Today we're going to be talking about how you can grow great peppers. In fact, not great peppers, fantastic peppers. I love peppers of all shapes and sizes, whether they're sweet or whether they're hot. I love cooking with them. Now, if you've not already subscribed to my channel, if you could please do so, because I give you lots of helpful hints and tips all throughout the year from my allotment, my home garden, and from time to time my home kitchen. Now, let's get started. I love growing peppers, but the story hasn't always been great and they haven't always grown so well for me. But over the years, I've learned some techniques that have really helped me grow absolutely awesome peppers, and I'm going to be sharing those top tips with you, and hopefully you'll get some really great results too. Now, I've got a selection of peppers on my allotment at the moment. I've got sweet and hot peppers. My hot peppers here are Hungarian hot wax. They are, I would say, medium hot. You can cook with those and actually put them straight into dishes. I normally put about 1 per person or 2 per person, so they're ones that are very easily edible. You can stuff them as well, so Hungarian hot wax are a really good versatile pepper. I've also got a sweet pepper called Romana. I've got a couple of them over here, and I've got one here, so I've got lots of lovely peppers on here. These are green at the moment. These will obviously change colour, as will the Hungarian hot waxes. They'll gradually change colour as they ripen. You can eat them as they are now, or you can wait for them to ripen. I've also got another really gorgeous variety. I've got something called a flamingo. I've never grown flamingo before. They're a lovely, lovely variety, and they gradually change into lots of different colours. So really, really colourful and really, really tasty. And the flamingo is a sweet pepper. Now, there are so many different types of peppers that I can go through, and I have grown the really, really, really hot ones before, but they are quite hard to use because you only need a tiny little bit. But if eating really hot chili peppers is your thing, then you can do some really big, really hot spice, Scotch bonnets, you know, all the really hot ones that completely scare me, but my husband absolutely adores. So peppers, first of all, love, love, love hot sunny weather. So, all depending where you are in the UK, you can grow them outdoors, which mine are all outdoors, as you can see. You can also grow them in a greenhouse or even in a conservatory, you know, whatever suits you best. Because of where I am in England, we're in the southeast, so we do get quite mild weather down here, so ours grow perfectly okay outside, and I quite like growing them outside rather than growing them in my greenhouse, because I don't have that much room in my greenhouse, so I have to pick what goes where, and only the things that really need to go in there go in there. Now, you can start them off from seed, or you can buy small plants. The choice is yours. So I often do a mixture, if I'm honest. I start a few off from seed, and then when I see something that really appeals to me, like the flamingo ones, I pick those up and I get those too. But you can do whatever suits you. If you're going to start them off from seed, it's really important that you start them off quite early. You can start them off between February and April. But in my opinion, the earlier you start them off, the better. So I would always start them off more like February, because they take quite a long time before you get any peppers to eat, and if you leave it too long, you might not get anything before the frost hits. So I start mine off in a heated propagator. I start them off in little seed trays, and I put several in a little seed tray when I start them off. I mix it with multi-purpose and core, so I do 50-50 for it to start off in. I obviously put it in the propagator. Now, as soon as they've germinated, and I mean literally as soon as they've germinated, like they're popping through the soil, I take the lid off the propagator. The biggest mistake I see with people that use propagators, they leave the lid on too long and then they go leggy. If you take the lid off straight away, it's done what it needed to do. They've germinated, and you just need the heat underneath to keep them warm, because my conservatory, which is where I normally start most of my plants off, isn't heated, or I don't heat it during the winter, and if they get too cold, then obviously they won't survive. Now, if you've not already got a heated propagator, they're not only useful for your peppers, but they're useful for a whole array of things. I start lots and lots of things off at the beginning of the year. I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you'd like to get one of those propagators. The next thing I do, and it's something that I've only started doing recently, is I've purchased grow lights. Absolute game changer. Although I started off peppers and various other things over the years, and they've done okay, I've really struggled with them growing leggy, with them not growing very quickly, and them not looking very green and looking a little bit pale. And the grow lights do exactly what they say they're going to do. They help things grow and flourish, and they give them the right amounts of lights to help them grow into lovely, lovely little plants. Now, if you've not already got some grow lights, I found a really fantastic cheap pair on Amazon, and you literally just clip clip it to your table or to your windowsill, whatever you want to clip it to, and you put the lights over the top of it. And I leave them on there for as long as I need to. Now I will pop a link up on the screen and one in the description if you'd like to get some grow lights. I do have to say I do make a little bit of money if you make any purchases, but the option's there if you want it. Now once the seedlings have got, I suppose, about 2 to 3 centimetres, they've got their true leaves on them. So what that means is they've not only got their seed leaves that have come out, they've grown another set of leaves. I then pop them on into some little pots. And again, I use the same mixture of multi-purpose and core, 50-50, and I pop them on into little pots. And I would generally leave them in the propagator with the heat and the grow lamps over it. Again, it all depends how warm it is where you live, but quite often where I live, I need the heated propagator on. But again, I have a thermometer where I know what the temperature is. So I know whether I need to keep the propagator on or not, but generally in the early stages you will always need to leave that propagator on. As it starts to warm up and we go through the months just before you're about to put them out, you can probably turn the propagator part off. It's just the grow lights that you need, but initially it's worth leaving the propagator on as well because it keeps them nice and warm and toasty. Now my peppers stay in my conservatory until the risk of frost has passed because they're very, very susceptible to frost. That's normally where I am, about May to June time, so all depending where you are in the country. Again, you can keep an eye on the Met Office to see what the weather's doing. So about May or June time, I then start to put them out in the garden. So it all depends whether you want to put them in the ground and whether you want to put them in pots. Now that's all down to you, all down to your personal choice. If you're putting them in pots, you will obviously get like a grow bag and put 3 in a row, or you can get a pot, say it's about 20 to 30 centimetres diameter and about 8 inches deep if you're going to put them into pots. I use, again, multi-purpose mixed with core quite often because it breaks the multi-purpose down that can be a little bit lumpy, bumpy. But you could just use multi-purpose if you wanted. Obviously, if you put them in the ground, I've got some well-rotted manure in these beds, and I've also got some well-rotted manure over there. They really, really like things like well-rotted manure in them. So if you think that your soil isn't very fertile, then digging a little bit of that in is really worthwhile. I start giving them some feed when they start to produce the blooms. Now I generally just use tomato feed because it's got all the right nutrients in it, so nothing complicated. The same feed I'm putting on my tomatoes I use on my peppers, and they say that it's worth doing it as soon as you start to see the blooms appearing. If I'm honest, I'd probably give them a little bit earlier, but I wouldn't worry too much. One of the really, really important things is to keep them well watered, a little bit like tomatoes. If they're not watered enough, the blooms can drop off, and if the blooms drop off, you've got no peppers. So it's well worth keeping them watered. Now when they're in the ground, it's not quite so tricky, which is another reason why I like growing things in the ground rather than pots. If they're in the pots, they do need to be watered more often, but don't just keep watering them just for the sake of it. Just if the ground looks a bit dry, give them a water. Because a lot of people say, oh, how often should I water? Well, it all depends how big your pot is, how much water they're sucking up. When they start producing the peppers, they're going to start sucking up more water. They need more water. When they're younger, the water will last a lot longer because they're not sucking it up quite so much. Your peppers might need support. Now mine don't need support at the moment, but they are starting to get a little bit bigger. They do seem to be holding their own, but I really do need to keep an eye on these. They're not quite as tricky as tomatoes that pretty much always need supporting, but do keep an eye on whether you'd need to put any supports on them, because the last thing you want to do is to put a lot of effort in growing your peppers and then for them to break off because the wind's got them. Now a lot of people talk about pinching out their peppers. Now it's really up to you. If you want to pinch your peppers out, you pinch the growing tip out when they're about 30 centimetres high. Just be warned, if you pinch the top out, it does mean that you're likely to get your peppers a little bit later. Personally, I don't. I just let them grow and I let them do what they want to do. But the choice is yours. Pinch or not to pinch, it's up to you. Now I typically harvest mine from about July to about the time when the frost hits. As the frost starts to hit, they start to die back. So I've already started harvesting a few of mine over the last month. We're in August now, but I was harvesting them in July. The only main benefit of having them in pots is if you do want to bring them into a conservatory or a greenhouse, you've then got the opportunity to do it. So that's the benefit of having them in pots. Now, and chilies in particular can be overwintered. I've never, I will be honest with you, overwintered a chili pepper before, but I do know lots of people that do bring their chili peppers in and they overwinter them and they produce peppers next year. Maybe I should try that next year and give it a go. The other thing is storing them. Now I make some lovely chili jam recipes. Absolutely fantastic chili jam recipe. Again, I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description for that. You can just chop them up and freeze them. That's another really easy way of doing it, or even put them in the freezer whole. I've done that. I've put bagfuls of chilies in the freezer, and the sweet peppers, I sometimes dice them up and just put them in a bag and grab a piece out at a time. Another thing that I really like doing, and I do this for, again, a lot of my other produce, is I like to dehydrate things. That's a really good way of preserving your chili peppers, and it's a really good way of preserving lots of other things for that matter. If you've not already got a dehydrator, I've got a really good Andrew James one that I absolutely love and that I've had for years and years. I will put a link up on the screen and one in the description if you'd like to get one of those. Now lastly but not least is pests and what to look out for. And if I'm honest, is one of the reasons why I don't grow them in the greenhouse. So one of the pests that you can get on your peppers are aphids. Now I find you get more aphids on them if you have them in the greenhouse, and I don't like to spray my produce. That's not to say I don't if I really have to, but I try and avoid it if I can. And I find that if I grow my peppers outside, I'm less likely to get the aphids on them. That being said, at the first sign of aphids, just like turn the leaves over. If you see any, try and just rub them off. Try and encourage beneficial insects if you can. We've had loads of ladybirds this year, and I think it's by no mistake that I haven't had too many aphids, because they've been munching away and lots of other beneficial bugs at the things that I don't want in my garden. The other thing is it's very similar to tomatoes. I can get something called blossom end rot, which means that basically at the bottom of the fruit you get kind of like a browny patch. Sometimes it's a little bit sunken and sometimes it isn't. That's just because you're not watering it consistently enough. You're either watering it too sporadically or you're not watering it enough. Basically it's getting dry at times. So that's how you get blossom end rot. The other one just in your greenhouse is something called red spider mite, which can not only affect your peppers, but it can affect lots of other things. We used to get a lot more of it when we had our chickens, and again, just good husbandry, trying to keep it tidy inside your greenhouse. But if you do get any trouble with it, we use something called diatomaceous earth, which is an organic substance which we use, and we use it for lots of different jobs, one of which we have used for our chickens to keep the mites off our chickens. We will put a link up on the screen and one in the description for that. The other thing is sometimes you get mould on the plants. Again, more likely towards the end of the year, and more likely if it's in the greenhouse. You kind of get like a fluffy mould on the leaves. That is just generally bad airflow, and again, if you see any dead leaves or anything that's broken off, just make sure you remove them. Try and keep the airflow good in your greenhouse. That will help keep things like that down as well. And I think that's it. So I do hope you've enjoyed watching my video. I do hope you've got value from it. If you'd like to watch more of my videos, there's a link up on the screen of what to sow in August.